Welcome to Mind Fuel Audio. Today, we explore Quiet, The Power of Introverts by Susan Cain, a groundbreaking book that highlights the hidden strengths of introverts and how they thrive in a world focused on extroversion. Chapter 1, The Extrovert Ideal, The Cultural Bias Against Introverts. The Rise of the Extrovert Ideal. Chapter 1 of Quiet begins by introducing the central concept of the book, the extrovert ideal. Susan Cain explores how, over the past century, society has shifted its focus toward extroversion, valuing traits like boldness, sociability, and outgoingness, while downplaying the strengths of introverts. She traces this shift back to the early 20th century, where cultural and economic changes began to favor traits like public speaking, assertiveness, and social charm. With the rise of the corporate world and a more consumer-driven economy, the loud, confident, and outgoing personality type became the ideal. Cain argues that, today, extroversion is so celebrated that it's almost seen as the only way to succeed in modern society. Cain uses a variety of historical examples to show how extroversion took over American society. She explains how, during the 20th century, especially in business, culture, and media, traits associated with introverts, such as calmness and reflection, were often viewed as weaknesses. In contrast, extroverts were celebrated for their ability to network, speak in public, and lead with energy. Cain's careful examination of this shift reveals how the dominance of the extrovert ideal has created a societal expectation that everyone should strive to be outgoing and gregarious. The impact on introverts. In this chapter, Cain also explores how the rise of the extrovert ideal has had a significant impact on introverts. Introverts, who may find energy in solitude and prefer deeper, one-on-one connections, often feel out of place in a world that values social performance over introspection. Cain reveals how introverts have been marginalized in school systems, workplaces, and even in their own social circles because their quieter, more reserved nature doesn't conform to the dominant ideals. Through personal anecdotes and real-life examples, Cain highlights how introverts are often made to feel inferior, as if they need to change who they are in order to succeed. Many introverts feel pressured to adopt behaviors that come more naturally to extroverts, such as speaking up in large groups or engaging in constant social interactions. This creates a sense of discomfort and a feeling of inadequacy. Cain emphasizes that introverts are not necessarily shy or antisocial. They simply derive energy in different ways and value solitude and reflection over constant social engagement. The value of introversion. While the chapter explores the challenges introverts face in an extrovert-centric world, Cain also takes the time to acknowledge the deep value that introverts bring to society. She argues that introverts often excel in areas that require focus, creativity, and thoughtfulness. They tend to think deeply before speaking, which often leads to well-thought-out ideas and insights. They can also be excellent listeners, which allows them to build strong, meaningful relationships. Cain points out that many successful people, from authors to entrepreneurs to leaders, have been introverts who embraced their natural tendencies and used them to their advantage. Cain provides examples of famous introverts, people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and J.K. Rowling, to show how introversion can be an asset. These individuals didn't conform to the extrovert ideal, but instead, they found success by embracing their inner quiet strength. By working independently and focusing deeply on their passions, they were able to achieve extraordinary accomplishments. Cain uses these examples to suggest that introverts don't need to change who they are in order to succeed. In fact, their success often comes from leaning into their quiet strengths, not abandoning them. The biological roots of introversion and extroversion. Cain introduces the idea that introversion and extroversion have biological roots. She discusses research on the brain and how introverts and extroverts are wired differently. For example, studies show that introverts tend to have more activity in the brain's frontal lobes, which are responsible for planning and decision-making. This makes them more sensitive to stimuli, meaning they can become overstimulated in busy environments. Extroverts, on the other hand, have lower levels of activity in these areas, which makes them less sensitive to external stimuli and more comfortable in highly stimulating, social environments. This biological explanation helps frame the debate between introversion and extroversion as something inherent, rather than a choice. It suggests that introverts are wired to thrive in calm, low-stimulation settings, while extroverts are naturally drawn to more stimulating, fast-paced environments. Cain uses this information to reinforce the idea that introverts shouldn't be seen as less capable or weaker, they are simply wired differently, and that difference should be respected. Challenging the extrovert ideal. One of the key messages in this chapter is Cain's challenge to the extrovert ideal. She calls for a rethinking of the way society views introversion and extroversion. Cain makes a compelling argument that both personality types are valuable and contribute to society in unique ways. She urges readers to reconsider the societal preference for extroversion and instead, embrace a more balanced perspective that values the strengths of introverts just as much as those of extroverts. Cain also points out that introverts often possess qualities that are vital for leadership and success, such as empathy, strategic thinking, and the ability to work independently. She suggests that if we create spaces that allow introverts to thrive, places where they can work quietly, reflect deeply, and engage in one-on-one conversations, they will be able to contribute more fully to their communities, workplaces, and families. The need for more balance in society. Cain ends the first chapter by emphasizing the need for a more balanced society, one that values the contributions of both introverts and extroverts. She stresses that the current cultural bias toward extroversion has led to the undervaluation of introverts, especially in work and education. If we want to create environments where everyone can thrive, it's essential that we acknowledge the strengths of introverts and give them the space to excel. By encouraging a society that values quiet reflection, deep thinking, and individual strengths, Cain believes we can create a more inclusive and productive world. She concludes with a call to action, urging both introverts and extroverts to recognize the importance of diversity in personality types and work toward creating a more harmonious balance. Chapter 2, The Myth of Charisma, How the Extrovert Ideal Shaped Leadership. The Leadership Myth. In Chapter 2, The Power of Introverts delves deeper into the connection between leadership and extroversion. Susan Cain addresses the widely held belief that in order to be an effective leader, you need to be charismatic, outgoing, and comfortable in the spotlight, traits often associated with extroversion. Cain points out how the extrovert ideal has shaped not only our social lives but also the way we view leadership. She traces the roots of this myth back to the beginning of the 20th century, when the rise of big business, marketing, and a more fast-paced world created a demand for strong, dominant leaders. The idea of the charismatic leader, someone who can energize a crowd and inspire people through sheer force of personality, became ingrained in society. Cain uses examples from history, such as the leadership styles of business moguls and political figures, to show how extroverted traits, like assertiveness and social confidence, have come to be seen as the hallmarks of effective leadership. This myth has permeated into everyday life, where introverted leaders are often overlooked or underestimated. Cain's examination reveals how deeply the idea of charismatic leadership has influenced our expectations, leading people to believe that in order to succeed or make a difference, they need to become outgoing and loud. The problem with the charismatic leadership ideal. Cain challenges the idea that charisma and extroverted qualities are the only traits that make a great leader. While extroverted leaders can certainly be effective, Cain argues that introverts have qualities that can make them even more successful in some situations. She explains that introverts often excel in environments that require careful thought, deep listening, and strategic planning. Traits that may not be as outwardly visible but are crucial to leadership success. One of the key ideas in this chapter is that introverts can be just as effective, if not more so, when they embrace their natural tendencies. Introverts tend to be more reflective, careful, and thoughtful in their decision-making. This leads to better planning, fewer impulsive mistakes, and a deeper understanding of the people they are leading. Cain provides several examples of introverted leaders who were able to achieve success in their own way, showing that introverted leadership can be just as powerful as extroverted leadership, if not more so. Cain also addresses how introverts often avoid the limelight, preferring to work quietly behind the scenes. But this does not mean they are any less effective. Instead of seeking attention or approval, introverts tend to focus on their work, their teams, and their long-term goals. This is especially effective in leadership roles where focus, planning, and calmness are needed. Introverted leadership in action. Cain offers real-world examples to support her argument. She explores the leadership styles of individuals such as Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, two extremely successful introverts who have made significant contributions in their fields. Despite not fitting the traditional mold of the charismatic, outgoing leader, both of these men have proven that introverted traits can be just as valuable, if not more so, in leadership positions. Cain emphasizes that these introverts didn't try to mold themselves into extroverts or adopt social strategies that didn't come naturally to them. Instead, they relied on their unique qualities, such as deep thinking, patience, and a preference for listening over speaking, to lead effectively. Cain also points out that introverts tend to be more open to feedback and criticism than extroverts, which can lead to better decision-making and a more collaborative leadership style. Introverts are often more aware of their own limitations and more willing to consider other perspectives before making a decision. This humility and openness to others' ideas can be key components of effective leadership. The role of introverts in team dynamics. In this chapter, Cain explores how introverted leaders excel in team dynamics, often bringing out the best in their team members. Unlike extroverted leaders who may dominate discussions and decision-making, introverts tend to step back and allow others to contribute. This creates a more inclusive and collaborative environment where team members feel heard and valued. Cain explains how introverted leaders are more likely to encourage input from all members of a team, which fosters innovation and creativity. Introverts are also more likely to create a sense of psychological safety in a team. By listening carefully and being empathetic, they make team members feel comfortable enough to share their ideas without fear of judgment or ridicule. Cain argues that this is especially important in work environments that thrive on creativity, innovation, and diverse ideas. Introverted leaders are not interested in building a team around their own ego or need for validation. Instead, they focus on creating a space where everyone can contribute meaningfully. The charismatic leadership trap. Cain delves into the pressures faced by introverted individuals who are placed in leadership positions in environments that expect them to behave in a more extroverted manner. She explores how introverts may feel compelled to adopt behaviors that don't come naturally to them, such as giving speeches, leading large groups, or taking center stage in social settings, even when it doesn't align with their personality. She calls this the charismatic leadership trap, where introverts feel they must act in a way that feels inauthentic to meet societal expectations of what a leader should be. This can lead to stress, burnout, and a lack of fulfillment. Cain suggests that introverts should resist the temptation to conform to these expectations and instead embrace their natural leadership style. She believes that introverts should be encouraged to lead in a way that aligns with their strengths, whether that means listening more, thinking deeply, or creating a more focused and supportive work environment. Cain also notes that introverted leaders can find success by focusing on small, meaningful actions instead of trying to fit into the charismatic mold. Leading through example, mentorship, and quiet guidance can be just as effective as leading through speeches and grand gestures. Rethinking leadership in a world that values extroversion. In the final section of the chapter, Cain makes a compelling case for rethinking how we define leadership in a world that values extroversion. She argues that society needs to recognize that leadership comes in many forms and that introverted leaders have qualities that are invaluable to the success of teams and organizations. Cain calls for a shift in mindset, one that values thoughtfulness, humility, and deep focus just as much as charisma, social confidence, and outgoing behavior. She encourages organizations and leaders to look beyond the traditional leadership stereotype and embrace a more inclusive approach that celebrates both introverted and extroverted qualities. In closing, Cain emphasizes that leadership isn't about fitting into a predefined mold or conforming to societal expectations, it's about embracing one's unique strengths and using them to create positive change. Introverts, in particular, have the power to lead in ways that are quiet but impactful. By stepping into leadership roles that align with their natural temperament, introverts can create environments where they, and others, can thrive. Chapter 3, The Neurobiology of Personality, the Science Behind Introversion and Extroversion. Introduction to the Science of Personality. In Chapter 3, Susan Cain delves into the fascinating world of neurobiology to explore why some people are naturally introverted and others extroverted. This chapter provides scientific insight into the biological and neurological roots of personality traits, helping readers understand that introversion and extroversion aren't just a matter of personal choice or cultural conditioning, they are deeply ingrained in our brains. Cain takes us beyond the myths and misconceptions surrounding introversion, using research in neuroscience to explain how different brain activities and sensitivity to stimuli can shape our behaviors. Cain starts by discussing the pioneering work of psychologist and researcher Jerome Kagan, who studied temperament in children and discovered that some babies were naturally more reactive to their environments, easily startled by loud noises or unfamiliar situations, while others were more calm and unbothered. These early findings, Cain explains, laid the foundation for understanding how differences in reactivity to the environment can help explain why some people are more introverted and others are more extroverted. The neurobiology of personality shows that introverts and extroverts have different brain wiring, making them respond differently to the same stimuli. This biological basis for introversion and extroversion is essential for understanding the traits associated with each type. The brain's response to stimuli. Cain explains that the key to understanding introversion and extroversion lies in the brain's response to dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, reward, and motivation. Extroverts have brains that are highly responsive to dopamine. They experience a stronger rush of pleasure from stimulating activities, such as social interactions or risky behaviors, making them crave external stimulation. For extroverts, being around people, engaging in conversation, or seeking out new experiences feels rewarding and energizing. In contrast, introverts have lower levels of dopamine activity and are more sensitive to it. As a result, they are more likely to become overstimulated in noisy, busy environments and may feel drained after prolonged social interactions. Instead of seeking external stimulation, introverts tend to find energy in solitude and introspection. Cain explains how this difference in brain chemistry is a natural, biological trait rather than a flaw or something that needs to be fixed. Introverts and extroverts simply experience the world differently, and these differences are rooted in their brain's chemical responses. This section of the chapter helps clarify that introverts aren't shy or antisocial, they just have a different sensitivity to external stimuli, which leads them to seek environments that are calmer and more focused. Their preference for solitude and quiet is not a sign of weakness or insecurity but a result of their brain's natural wiring. The role of the reticular activating system (RAS). Cain introduces the concept of the reticular activating system, RAS, a part of the brain that plays a significant role in how we respond to stimuli. The RAS regulates our level of alertness and helps determine how much information from our environment we process. Extroverts have a more active RAS, meaning they are naturally more alert to their surroundings and seek out new experiences. This high reactivity to stimuli makes them more drawn to social environments, new people, and exciting situations. On the other hand, introverts have a less reactive RAS, which means they process fewer stimuli at a time. This lower reactivity allows introverts to focus deeply on specific tasks or thoughts, but it also makes them more sensitive to external distractions. Cain points out that introverts' lower RAS activity makes them more likely to withdraw from overstimulating environments, seeking out quieter, more peaceful surroundings where they can recharge. This explanation of the RAS shows that introverts and extroverts aren't just acting based on personality, their brains are biologically wired to respond to the world in different ways, which impacts how they feel in social situations, how they interact with others, and what types of environments they thrive in. The impact of environment on personality. Cain also explores how environment plays a crucial role in shaping personality traits. While biology sets the stage for introversion or extroversion, the environment, especially during childhood, can influence how these traits are expressed. She highlights the research of neuroscientist Richard J. Davidson, who studied how the brain responds to social situations. His research revealed that children who grow up in environments that are highly stimulating or emotionally charged tend to develop more extroverted traits, while children raised in calmer, more structured environments often lean toward introversion. However, Cain emphasizes that this doesn't mean introverts are created by their environments. Rather, our early experiences shape the ways in which our brain's natural tendencies manifest in the world. For example, a naturally introverted child may learn to speak up in social situations or perform well in group settings, but this may be exhausting for them, and they may need time alone afterward to recharge. Conversely, an extroverted child might thrive in the same situation, feeling energized and excited by the interaction. This section of the chapter helps clarify that introversion and extroversion are not solely determined by upbringing but are influenced by a combination of biology and environment. Cain argues that understanding the interaction between these two factors can help us appreciate the diversity of human personalities and create environments that support both introverts and extroverts. The evolutionary advantage of introversion and extroversion. Cain also explores the evolutionary perspective on introversion and extroversion. She explains that both personality types may have developed as adaptive responses to different environmental challenges. Extroverts' tendency to seek social connections and take risks may have been advantageous in environments where forming alliances and venturing into new territories were necessary for survival. On the other hand, introverts' inclination toward reflection, deep thinking, and solitude may have been valuable in times when careful planning, strategy, and observation were needed. Cain notes that this evolutionary view suggests that both introversion and extroversion served important purposes throughout history, depending on the situation. While extroverts may have been more likely to engage in exploratory behaviors and take on leadership roles, introverts may have been more suited for tasks that required careful observation, long-term planning, and deep focus. This evolutionary explanation helps readers appreciate the importance of both types of personalities in shaping human progress and survival. Introverts and extroverts have complementary strengths, and Cain argues that society can benefit from embracing both types of individuals and recognizing the different contributions they can make. Chapter 4: The Power of Shyness, Why We Should Embrace the Quiet Side of Ourselves. Introduction to Shyness and its Link to Introversion. In Chapter 4, Susan Cain examines the powerful, often misunderstood emotion of shyness. While introversion and shyness are related, they are not the same thing. Cain explains that shyness is a social fear, whereas introversion is a personality trait rooted in how we respond to stimuli and social situations. The chapter focuses on how shyness affects introverts and why it's important to embrace this part of ourselves instead of avoiding or suppressing it. Cain emphasizes that shyness is something that many people experience, regardless of whether they are introverted or extroverted. However, introverts tend to be more prone to shyness because they are more sensitive to social interactions and the judgments of others. This sensitivity, Cain points out, is often what makes introverts so thoughtful, empathetic, and capable of deep connections, but it can also make social situations feel overwhelming. She starts by discussing the way society often views shyness as something that needs to be fixed. Many people assume that shy individuals are insecure, lacking confidence, or unwilling to connect with others. Cain challenges this idea, suggesting that shyness is a complex emotional response that arises from a variety of factors, including biology, social experience, and personal temperament. The roots of shyness, biology in early childhood. Cain explores the roots of shyness, explaining that it can be linked to both biological factors and early childhood experiences. She shares the research of Jerome Kagan, who studied the temperaments of infants and discovered that some babies are naturally more reactive to stimuli than others. These babies, who are more prone to anxiety and overstimulation, often grow into children who are shy and introverted. The key finding from Kagan's research is that some children are naturally more sensitive to their environment and social interactions. They may feel anxious or overwhelmed by unfamiliar people, places, or situations. This heightened sensitivity is not a flaw, Cain asserts, but rather a biological trait that helps these individuals navigate the world with caution and awareness. Cain also notes that early childhood experiences can play a significant role in shaping shyness. A child who experiences social rejection, bullying, or lack of support may become more withdrawn and hesitant in social situations. Conversely, children who are encouraged to interact with others in a supportive, understanding environment are more likely to develop social confidence, even if they are naturally shy. Shyness in adulthood, overcoming social anxiety. As adults, many people continue to experience shyness, especially in unfamiliar or high-pressure social situations. Cain discusses how adults who were once shy children may carry that anxiety into their careers and relationships. However, Cain emphasizes that being shy does not mean being incapable of success. Shy individuals can thrive in environments that support their quiet strengths, such as deep listening, creativity, and focused work. Cain introduces the concept of social anxiety as a more severe form of shyness, where individuals feel an overwhelming fear of being judged or rejected in social situations. Social anxiety can be paralyzing, causing individuals to avoid social interactions or feel physically uncomfortable when they have to engage with others. Cain shares stories of people who have faced social anxiety but have learned to manage their fear by finding environments where they feel safe and supported. Rather than suggesting that shy people should simply get over it or force themselves into uncomfortable social situations, Cain advocates for a more compassionate and understanding approach. She encourages shy individuals to recognize their feelings as valid and to seek out environments where they can flourish without the pressure to conform to extroverted norms. The power of quiet, shyness as a strength. In this chapter, Cain also highlights how shyness and introversion can be powerful assets in both personal and professional contexts. While extroverted individuals may thrive in fast-paced, social environments, introverts and shy individuals excel in quieter settings where deep thinking, empathy, and careful attention to detail are valued. Cain cites examples of famous shy individuals who have used their quiet strengths to achieve great things. One example is the author J.K. Rowling, who famously struggled with shyness and social anxiety but was able to channel her quiet energy into writing the Harry Potter series. Rowling's success shows that introversion and shyness don't have to be seen as obstacles but rather as unique characteristics that can fuel creativity and accomplishment. Cain explains that the quiet power of shyness lies in its ability to foster deep thought and reflection. Shy individuals are often more observant and reflective than their more outgoing counterparts, which can lead to insightful ideas and solutions that others might miss. Cain also emphasizes that introverts are often better listeners, which allows them to connect with others on a deeper level and form meaningful, lasting relationships. The cultural pressure to overcome shyness. One of the key messages of this chapter is the societal pressure to overcome shyness and conform to the extroverted ideal. Cain examines how culture, particularly in Western societies, often equates social confidence with success. We are encouraged to speak up, take risks, and be outgoing, qualities typically associated with extroversion. Shy individuals may feel like they need to change who they are in order to fit in and succeed. Cain argues that this cultural bias toward extroversion creates a false standard for social behavior. Shyness is often viewed as a weakness or a limitation, when in fact it is simply a different way of interacting with the world. She encourages readers to embrace their shy, introverted sides, recognizing that they bring unique perspectives and qualities to the table. Instead of trying to force themselves into the mold of a confident, outgoing person, Cain suggests that introverts and shy individuals should focus on building environments that suit their temperament and allow them to thrive. This might involve seeking out smaller, more intimate gatherings, pursuing careers that allow for independent work, or simply finding ways to recharge in solitude after social events. The benefits of embracing shyness. Cain concludes the chapter by highlighting the benefits of embracing shyness and recognizing its value. She suggests that individuals who accept their shyness and introversion can live more fulfilling lives by focusing on their strengths and creating environments that support their needs. Shyness, when embraced, can lead to a more authentic and satisfying existence, one that honors personal boundaries, quiet reflection, and meaningful connections. Rather than trying to overcome or eliminate shyness, Cain advocates for a shift in perspective, a move toward valuing quiet strengths as much as extroverted traits. By recognizing the power of shyness, introverts can build their self-esteem, develop confidence in their own abilities, and create environments where they can thrive. Cain also emphasizes the importance of creating a society where introversion and shyness are not stigmatized but embraced. She calls for more awareness and understanding of the value of quiet individuals in both personal and professional spaces. Chapter 5, Beyond Temperament, The Role of Culture in Shaping Our Identity. Introduction, The Influence of Culture on Introversion and Extroversion. In Chapter 5 of Quiet, Susan Cain explores the role of culture in shaping our identities as introverts or extroverts. While much of our temperament is rooted in biology and neuroscience, the culture in which we live plays a powerful role in determining how these traits are expressed. Cain argues that Western culture, particularly in the United States, places a premium on extroverted qualities, such as assertiveness, sociability, and the ability to perform in high-energy environments. This societal pressure to perform as extroverts can make introverts feel undervalued or even invisible. Cain begins by discussing the cultural shift that occurred in the early 20th century, particularly in the U.S., when the culture of personality emerged. This shift, which emphasized outward confidence, charm, and the ability to sell oneself, marked a stark contrast to the culture of character that had preceded it. The culture of character valued inner qualities like integrity, hard work, and humility. However, the rise of the personality-driven model, fueled by the rise of advertising and media, led to a preference for extroverted traits. Cain's analysis shows that introversion isn't simply a personal trait, it's shaped by the broader cultural environment. In a world where charisma and social skill are prized, introverts often feel like they need to fit a mold that doesn't align with their natural dispositions. The extrovert ideal, the power of charisma and public speaking. One of the primary ways that culture shapes our view of introversion is through the idealization of extroverted behaviors. Cain delves into the ways in which the extrovert ideal is reinforced in popular culture, business, and even education. In particular, she explores the central role that public speaking has played in shaping our cultural definitions of success and leadership. Throughout history, public speaking has been seen as a key skill for leaders, particularly in Western culture. Charismatic figures like Franklin D. Roosevelt, Martin Luther King Jr., and Winston Churchill are often celebrated not just for their policies, but for their powerful speeches. Their ability to captivate an audience, inspire action, and build social connections has become synonymous with leadership in many societies. Cain highlights how this ideal has permeated our view of what it means to be successful. Public speaking and the ability to command attention are often seen as essential qualities for success. For introverts, the extrovert ideal can be especially challenging. Cain uses the example of the business world, where individuals who are skilled at networking, public speaking, and socializing are often promoted and recognized, while quieter individuals who excel in focused, behind-the-scenes work are overlooked. This focus on charisma and social competence can leave introverts feeling like their strengths, such as deep thinking, creativity, and listening, are undervalued. The role of introversion in different cultures. Cain goes on to discuss how the expectations of introversion and extroversion vary across cultures. While the United States and many Western countries prioritize extroversion, other cultures, especially in East Asia, place a higher value on introverted traits like modesty, introspection, and humility. Cain points to the example of Japan, where introverts are more likely to be celebrated for their thoughtfulness and reserved nature than in the U.S., where extroverted qualities like assertiveness and public speaking are often seen as indicators of success. In these cultures, introverts are often encouraged to cultivate their inner lives, reflecting a different set of values from those found in extroverted cultures. Cain argues that these cultural differences reveal that introversion and extroversion are not universal traits, but are influenced by the society in which they are expressed. She suggests that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to personality and that different cultural norms can lead to different expressions of introversion and extroversion. Cain also notes that, in societies where introversion is more respected, introverts may feel less pressure to perform in ways that are contrary to their nature. For example, in cultures where group harmony and restraint are emphasized, introverts may feel more comfortable participating in discussions and contributing ideas without the need for loud, extroverted displays. The introvert advantage, quiet leadership and the power of reflection. Despite the challenges that the extrovert ideal creates, Cain argues that introverts have unique strengths that should be recognized and valued. She discusses the concept of quiet leadership, where introverts lead through example, deep thinking, and reflection rather than through charismatic speeches or bold actions. Cain uses the example of Bill Gates, who is often described as a quiet and reserved leader, but whose intellect, vision, and thoughtful approach to problem-solving have made him one of the most successful figures in the tech industry. Cain emphasizes that introverts bring a different set of leadership skills to the table. While extroverts may excel in high-energy environments and social interactions, introverts often thrive in settings where deep reflection, planning, and quiet problem-solving are required. Introverts tend to be great listeners, which makes them skilled at understanding the needs and concerns of others. They are also often more empathetic and able to make thoughtful decisions based on careful analysis rather than impulsive reactions. This section of the chapter underscores Cain's message that introversion should not be viewed as a limitation but as a different, equally valuable approach to leadership and success. She suggests that by embracing their introverted nature, individuals can lead in a way that feels authentic and true to themselves, rather than trying to fit into an extroverted mold. Finding a balance, embracing both introverted and extroverted traits. Cain concludes the chapter by discussing the importance of finding a balance between introverted and extroverted qualities. She acknowledges that society's preference for extroversion can be overwhelming for introverts, but she also points out that introverts can benefit from stepping outside their comfort zones and engaging with the world in new ways. By integrating some of the traits that are traditionally associated with extroversion, such as assertiveness or social engagement, introverts can expand their opportunities and grow in their personal and professional lives. However, Cain emphasizes that this doesn't mean that introverts need to change who they are. Instead, she encourages introverts to embrace their natural strengths and find environments that allow them to thrive. She advocates for a world where both introverts and extroverts are valued for their unique contributions, and where individuals can find success and fulfillment by playing to their strengths, rather than conforming to societal pressures to act like extroverts. Chapter 6: The Secret of Effective Collaboration, The Power of Listening. Introduction to Collaboration and the Extrovert Ideal. In Chapter 6, Susan Cain explores the complex dynamics of collaboration, particularly in team settings, and how introverts contribute uniquely to group work. The chapter dives into the cultural bias that values loud, assertive, and dominant voices in group discussions. Cain reveals that this extroverted ideal often drowns out the more reserved but equally valuable contributions of introverts. Cain begins by discussing how modern work environments, particularly in business and education, prioritize teamwork and collaboration. The value placed on group work often aligns with the extroverted ideal, emphasizing brainstorming sessions, open meetings, and social interactions. However, introverts, who might prefer working alone or in smaller, quieter groups, often struggle in this environment. Cain explains that introverts may feel overlooked or undervalued in group settings where louder voices dominate the conversation. Yet, despite this, introverts possess a wealth of qualities that make them highly effective collaborators. These qualities, such as deep thinking, active listening, and a calm presence, allow introverts to offer valuable insights and contributions that are sometimes missed in a fast-paced, extrovert-driven setting. The power of listening, a quiet strength. One of the key themes of this chapter is the idea that introverts often excel in the art of listening, which is a crucial element of effective collaboration. Cain argues that listening is an underappreciated skill, especially in an environment that values speaking up and being heard. Introverts, who are typically more reserved, tend to listen more carefully, observe the dynamics of a group, and think before speaking. This reflective approach gives them a unique ability to offer thoughtful, considered contributions when they do decide to speak. Cain highlights the example of introverts in leadership roles who lead by listening rather than talking. Leaders like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, though known for their introversion, are renowned for their ability to listen to others and absorb information before making decisions. Cain points out that this careful listening leads to more nuanced, informed decision-making, which is crucial in collaboration. Introverts may not dominate discussions, but their listening skills often enable them to notice patterns, identify key issues, and offer solutions that others might miss. Cain suggests that organizations and teams could benefit from creating spaces where listening and reflection are valued as much as speaking out. Groupthink and the risks of over-collaboration. Another important idea discussed in Chapter 6 is the concept of groupthink, a phenomenon that can arise in team settings when everyone agrees too easily, often at the expense of critical thinking. Cain explains how the emphasis on collaboration can sometimes stifle creativity and innovation. In an environment where extroverted individuals dominate the conversation, groupthink can emerge and dissenting voices may be overlooked or suppressed. Cain shares research showing that teams with a mix of introverts and extroverts are more likely to avoid groupthink. Introverts, with their preference for independent thinking and reflection, are less likely to go along with the crowd without thoroughly considering alternative perspectives. Their ability to think critically and independently helps to balance out the fast-paced, consensus-driven culture of many modern workplaces. Introverts are less likely to conform simply for the sake of social harmony. They tend to take their time, evaluate different viewpoints, and contribute carefully considered thoughts. As a result, teams that include introverts often make better decisions and are more innovative. Cain urges organizations to recognize the dangers of over-collaboration and to create environments where both introverts and extroverts can contribute equally to the decision-making process. The collaboration bias and its impact on introverts. Cain explores the idea of the collaboration bias, the assumption that the best ideas come from group work. This bias often results in introverts being undervalued in environments where collaborative efforts are seen as the primary means of innovation. Cain suggests that the assumption that collaboration equals better outcomes is flawed. In reality, introverts often work best when given space to think deeply on their own, rather than being rushed into brainstorming sessions or group meetings. Cain challenges the common assumption that extroverted team members are more creative or productive simply because they are more vocal. She uses the example of research in educational settings where introverted students, who may not speak up in class, often produce the highest quality work when given time to reflect individually. When introverts are allowed to work in quieter, more independent settings, they often come up with solutions that are more creative, thoughtful, and effective than those that are generated in groupthink-driven environments. She also touches on how introverts may feel pressured to conform to the group dynamic, even if it doesn't suit their natural style of working. This cultural bias toward collaboration can create frustration and disengagement for introverts, who may feel their strengths are undervalued. Collaboration that works for introverts, strategies for success. Cain then moves on to practical solutions for how introverts can succeed in collaborative environments. She suggests that organizations can benefit by creating a balance between individual work and group work. By giving introverts time to process information on their own and contribute when they feel ready, teams can draw on the strengths of both introverts and extroverts. One effective strategy Cain highlights is the use of structured collaboration. This involves setting clear goals, establishing ground rules for participation, and allowing each team member to have a chance to contribute individually before the group converges to discuss ideas. This structure ensures that introverts are given the time and space they need to think deeply, while also allowing the group to benefit from their insights. Cain also suggests that teams should make an effort to create environments where introverts feel comfortable speaking up. For instance, written communication, such as emails or shared documents, can be a more comfortable medium for introverts to express their thoughts. In some cases, introverts might prefer contributing their ideas in writing before sharing them in a group discussion. This allows them to organize their thoughts clearly and ensures that their ideas are not overshadowed by louder voices. Celebrating the introvert's contribution to collaboration. In the final part of the chapter, Cain emphasizes the importance of recognizing the unique contributions that introverts bring to collaborative settings. While the extroverted ideal may dominate in many professional and social spaces, Cain argues that introverts' quiet strength is essential to the success of any group. Their ability to listen carefully, think critically, and contribute thoughtfully makes them invaluable team members. Cain suggests that organizations, schools, and teams should reframe their approach to collaboration by valuing both introverted and extroverted qualities. Rather than focusing on who speaks the most, Cain argues that we should focus on who brings the most valuable ideas, perspectives, and insights to the table. By fostering a culture that recognizes the strengths of all personality types, teams can become more effective, creative, and harmonious. Chapter 7: The Myth of Charismatic Leadership. Introduction: Rethinking Leadership in a World of Extroversion. Chapter 7 of Quiet explores the deeply ingrained myth of charismatic leadership, which often equates extroverted qualities with effective leadership. Susan Cain challenges this notion by pointing out that many successful leaders throughout history, from Mahatma Gandhi to Eleanor Roosevelt, were introverts who led not through charisma or loud speeches, but through quiet strength, determination, and the ability to inspire through actions rather than words. Cain begins by acknowledging that our society tends to prioritize leaders who can command attention, speak confidently, and capture the public's imagination. This is the extroverted model of leadership, the leader who stands in front of a crowd, who rallies people with their words, and who thrives in high-energy environments. However, Cain argues that this model overlooks the unique strengths of introverts, who lead in more subtle ways but are no less powerful or effective in doing so. The myth of charismatic leadership can be damaging, especially in corporate and political settings, where introverts may feel pressured to change their natural styles of leadership in order to fit the extroverted mold. This chapter aims to debunk the idea that only extroverts can lead successfully and explores how introverted leaders can be just as impactful, if not more so, than their extroverted counterparts. The extrovert ideal in leadership. Cain delves into the history of leadership in the Western world, where the figure of the great leader has often been characterized by extroverted traits such as assertiveness, social dominance, and charisma. She notes that much of this can be traced back to the early 20th century when the cult of personality began to take root. Leaders who were able to captivate large crowds and project confidence became the archetypes of leadership in politics, business, and even social movements. This idea of the leader as performer has been ingrained in the cultural psyche, from the dynamic speeches of figures like Winston Churchill to the rockstar charisma of modern business tycoons like Steve Jobs. Cain argues that this emphasis on performance overlooks the quieter, more reflective qualities of leadership, qualities that introverts naturally possess. While extroverts may excel in environments that demand high visibility, Cain explains that introverted leaders often excel in more reflective, thoughtful settings, where deep thinking, listening, and empathy are key. These qualities allow them to build relationships based on trust and respect, rather than relying solely on charisma or the ability to perform. The quiet leader, examples from history. Throughout the chapter, Cain provides numerous examples of introverted leaders who made profound impacts, despite not fitting the traditional extroverted leadership mold. One of the most striking examples is that of Mahatma Gandhi, whose leadership in the Indian independence movement was characterized by his calm demeanor, quiet resolve, and emphasis on inner reflection. Gandhi's leadership was not about dominating the conversation but about inspiring others through his actions, values, and ability to listen deeply to the concerns of his followers. Similarly, Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the most influential First Ladies of the United States, led with quiet strength. Known for her introspection, empathy, an ability to connect with people on a deep, personal level. Roosevelt's leadership was rooted in her ability to listen and understand the struggles of others. She was not the loudest voice in the room, but her subtle influence and ability to bring people together made her one of the most admired figures in American history. Cain highlights how both Gandhi and Roosevelt demonstrated that leadership is not about loudness or spectacle but about integrity, empathy, and the ability to inspire others through values and actions. These examples challenge the prevailing notion that extroverted leaders are more effective or capable of achieving greatness. The rise of the leadership extrovert. Cain also discusses how the modern business world has come to prioritize extroverted qualities in leadership. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the corporate world became increasingly focused on charismatic leadership, a model that places a premium on the ability to influence and inspire through social skill and personal presence. This shift, Cain argues, reflects a broader cultural bias toward extroversion, where being outgoing, assertive, and visible are seen as keys to success. Cain contrasts this with a more traditional view of leadership, which placed more value on quiet determination, hard work, and the ability to bring people together in collaborative, meaningful ways. In the corporate world, introverts often find themselves in the shadow of extroverted peers, despite having qualities that make them excellent leaders. Cain explains that while extroverts may excel in high-energy environments, introverts often shine in situations that require careful thought, long-term strategy, and the ability to listen to diverse perspectives. The best leaders are not necessarily those who are the most outgoing, but those who can inspire trust, communicate effectively, and make thoughtful, informed decisions. Introverts in leadership, the challenges they face. Cain also explores the specific challenges that introverted leaders face in a world that prizes extroversion. Introverts often struggle with the expectation that they must perform in order to be seen as effective leaders. This can lead to internal conflict, as introverts may feel they must hide or suppress their natural tendencies in order to succeed. She acknowledges that introverted leaders often face difficulty in situations where they must step into the spotlight or lead large, boisterous teams. However, Cain emphasizes that introverts have the ability to lead effectively without the need to adopt extroverted behaviors. By staying true to their nature and focusing on their strengths, introverts can lead in ways that are authentic to them. Cain also discusses how introverted leaders can navigate the challenges of leading teams by embracing their reflective qualities. Introverts often lead through listening, observation, and empathy, which can foster a deeper sense of loyalty and respect among team members. Rather than trying to emulate extroverted styles of leadership, Cain argues that introverts should embrace their unique qualities and lead in a way that feels natural and authentic. The power of quiet influence. In the latter part of the chapter, Cain explores the idea of quiet influence. While extroverted leaders often dominate the conversation, introverts wield influence in more subtle, understated ways. Their quiet presence, thoughtful contributions, and ability to inspire by example make them powerful leaders in their own right. Cain explains that introverted leaders often lead through actions rather than words. By remaining calm under pressure, making decisions based on careful reflection, and showing deep empathy for others, introverts create an environment where others feel heard, valued, and respected. This quiet influence allows introverts to lead in a way that fosters long-term relationships and deep trust, rather than relying on short-term bursts of charisma or performance. This section underscores Cain's main argument, that leadership is not about being the loudest or most dominant presence in the room, but about creating an environment where others feel empowered to contribute, grow, and succeed. Introverts may not always take center stage, but their leadership has a lasting and profound impact on those around them. Chapter 8: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Introduction: The Need for Quiet Spaces in a Noisy World. In Chapter 8, Susan Cain addresses the growing challenges faced by introverts in a society that values constant communication and interaction. Our world, she points out, is increasingly designed for extroverts, loud, social, and ever connected. Introverts, on the other hand, often find themselves overwhelmed by this constant stimulation. They need quiet spaces to think, recharge, and reflect, yet the cultural expectation is that we must constantly talk, interact, and share. Cain starts by acknowledging that introverts may feel out of place in modern social settings, where being talkative and outgoing is seen as a sign of confidence and success. The chapter goes on to explore how introverts can carve out meaningful spaces for themselves, even in a world that often seems to favor the extroverted ideal. Cain emphasizes the importance of understanding that introverts' need for solitude and quiet is not a flaw but a natural and essential part of their personality. Introverts gain their energy through solitary activities, such as reading, writing, or reflecting, and they thrive in environments that allow them to think deeply. This chapter explores how introverts can navigate and thrive in a society that often values the exact opposite. The myth of the extrovert ideal, how our world is designed for the loud. Cain delves deeper into how our culture has created an extrovert ideal, where the most visible, outgoing, and gregarious people are valued the most. Whether it's in the workplace, educational systems, or social events, the extrovert ideal is dominant, and introverts often feel the need to adapt to this model, even though it may not align with their natural preferences. Cain uses research and real-world examples to illustrate how many of our cultural norms, from corporate boardrooms to classrooms, are designed with extroverts in mind. For instance, group work in schools and brainstorming sessions in the office are structured to highlight extroverted qualities like quick thinking, fast talking, and spontaneity. These settings can make introverts feel inadequate or disconnected, as their strengths, thoughtful reflection and careful analysis, are often undervalued. The chapter explores how this extroverted model limits not only the potential of introverts but also the overall effectiveness of groups. By focusing so much on loudness and social interaction, we risk ignoring the deeper, more valuable contributions of introverts, who may need quiet time to process information before contributing their ideas. The power of solitude, how introverts recharge and reflect. Cain explains that for introverts, solitude is not a sign of loneliness but an essential way to recharge and reconnect with themselves. Unlike extroverts, who gain energy from socializing and external stimulation, introverts feel drained after prolonged social interactions and need time alone to restore their energy. Cain highlights the importance of respecting this need for solitude, both for introverts themselves and for those around them. Introverts often use their alone time to engage in creative activities, deep thinking, and introspection. Cain describes how solitude allows introverts to access their most creative ideas and produce their best work. She also explains that introverts are more likely to engage in long-term, deep thinking, which can lead to innovative ideas and solutions. In fact, many successful introverts, such as artists, writers, and scientists, have thrived because of their ability to spend time alone, allowing their minds the freedom to explore ideas without distraction. Cain stresses that our society's disregard for the power of solitude can be detrimental not only to introverts but to everyone. When we fail to respect the need for quiet spaces, we miss out on the potential for reflection, creativity, and personal growth. Creating quiet spaces, how introverts can thrive in a noisy world. In this section, Cain offers practical suggestions for how introverts can create and protect their quiet spaces, both physically and emotionally. This could mean finding a quiet room in the house to retreat to, using noise-canceling headphones in a crowded office, or setting boundaries with friends and family to ensure they have enough time alone to recharge. Cain emphasizes the importance of introverts making their needs known in a respectful way. For instance, if an introvert feels overwhelmed by social gatherings or work events, they can set clear boundaries, explaining that they need quiet time to feel their best. She also advises introverts to seek out environments where they can feel comfortable and supported. Whether it's a calm coffee shop, a peaceful park, or a cozy reading nook at home, having access to quiet spaces is crucial for introverts to feel energized and fulfilled. Cain also touches on the importance of introverts finding like-minded people who understand and respect their need for solitude. Surrounding themselves with people who appreciate their quiet strengths can make introverts feel more confident and less pressure to conform to the extrovert ideal. The power of quiet leadership, leading through reflection and empathy. One of the key takeaways from Chapter 8 is the concept of quiet leadership. Cain highlights how introverted leaders can be incredibly effective, even though they may not exhibit the loud, dominant qualities often associated with leadership. Introverted leaders often lead through reflection, empathy, and thoughtfulness. Cain offers examples of successful quiet leaders, such as Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, who have led their companies not through charisma or flamboyant speeches, but through careful decision-making, strategic thinking, and deep understanding of their employees and customers. These leaders don't need to be the loudest in the room to be effective. Their quiet demeanor allows them to listen more, reflect on ideas, and make thoughtful decisions that benefit the group in the long term. Introverted leaders also excel in creating environments where their teams can thrive. By fostering a culture of respect, trust, and empathy, introverted leaders encourage collaboration and innovation without dominating the conversation. This type of leadership is subtle but powerful, and it's often more sustainable than the more visible, extroverted style of leadership. How society can benefit from introverts' quiet strengths. Cain concludes Chapter 8 by reiterating the importance of recognizing the value of introverts in all aspects of society. She argues that if we create more space for introverts to thrive, everyone, introverts and extroverts alike, will benefit. When introverts are allowed to work in environments that respect their need for solitude and reflection, they can bring unique, valuable perspectives that can help solve complex problems. Cain also discusses how schools, workplaces, and communities can be more inclusive of introverts by embracing diverse working and learning styles. For instance, educational systems can offer students more opportunities for independent work, while workplaces can give employees the flexibility to work in quieter environments when needed. By honoring both introverted and extroverted strengths, we can create a more balanced and effective society. Chapter 9: When Collaboration Kills Creativity. Introduction: The Pressure to Collaborate. In Chapter 9, Susan Cain examines how the modern world, with its emphasis on teamwork and collaboration, can sometimes stifle creativity, especially for introverts. Cain argues that while collaboration is often seen as the key to success in today's workplaces, it is not always the best route for deep, original thinking. The constant push for teamwork can sometimes undermine the very creative processes that introverts excel at, leaving them feeling drained and unable to express their ideas. The chapter explores how group work, brainstorming sessions, and open office environments, which are commonly promoted as tools for fostering innovation, might actually inhibit the kind of focused, independent thinking that leads to breakthrough ideas. Cain's goal in this chapter is to challenge the assumption that collaboration is always the best approach for generating creative solutions and to highlight the often overlooked value of solitude in the creative process. The downside of group work: how teams can inhibit creative thinking. Cain opens this chapter by addressing the growing trend of teamwork in both education and the workplace. Schools and businesses have increasingly moved toward collaborative models, assuming that group work will naturally lead to better ideas. However, Cain points out that this emphasis on collaboration often discourages the individual thought required for true creativity. In a group setting, introverts may struggle to contribute their best ideas. They often need time to reflect, process, and work independently before sharing their thoughts. However, in a collaborative environment, they are often expected to come up with ideas on the spot and present them in front of others, which can be challenging and uncomfortable. This pressure to constantly interact and contribute in real time can leave introverts feeling overwhelmed and less able to contribute meaningfully. Cain draws on research to illustrate how group work can lead to groupthink, a phenomenon where the desire for harmony and consensus in a group stifles critical thinking and leads to poor decision-making. Groupthink, Cain explains, can prevent innovative ideas from emerging and can be especially detrimental in creative fields where fresh perspectives and unconventional thinking are necessary. The introvert's creative process: quiet time for innovation. Cain contrasts the drawbacks of constant collaboration with the creative benefits of solitude, explaining how introverts often come up with their best ideas when they are alone and allowed to think deeply without interruption. Introverts, who typically enjoy solitude, often need time to process information, reflect on their thoughts, and make connections that others might overlook in a busy, collaborative setting. For introverts, creativity is not necessarily a spontaneous process. It requires time, space, and the freedom to think without the pressure of immediate feedback or group discussion. Cain shares research showing that introverts are more likely to come up with innovative ideas when given the time to reflect and work independently. This period of solitary thinking is essential for introverts to connect the dots, engage in deep problem solving, and develop their ideas to their fullest potential. Cain also highlights how introverted creatives, such as writers, scientists, and artists, often thrive when they are given the space to work in isolation. This period of quiet reflection allows them to explore their ideas in depth and refine them before presenting them to others. Cain suggests that rather than forcing introverts into constant group work, organizations and educational institutions should recognize the value of giving them time to think on their own. The myth of the open office, how constant interaction destroys focus. The chapter also tackles the modern trend of open office spaces, which are designed to foster collaboration by eliminating barriers between employees. While these environments are intended to encourage communication and idea sharing, Cain argues that they often have the opposite effect, particularly for introverts who need quiet to concentrate and think. Open offices are noisy, distracting, and full of interruptions, making it difficult for introverts to focus and do their best work. Cain discusses how these environments can increase stress for introverts, making them feel pressured to constantly interact with colleagues, even when they would prefer to work alone. This constant interaction not only drains introverts' energy but also makes it difficult for them to engage in the deep, focused thinking that is necessary for creativity. Cain cites research showing that people in open office environments tend to have lower productivity and higher stress levels compared to those in private offices or more controlled environments. The constant stimulation and lack of privacy make it harder for employees to concentrate on complex tasks and to think creatively. Cain argues that a balance between collaboration and solitude is essential for fostering innovation. The power of solitude in history's great creative minds. Throughout the chapter, Cain draws on examples from history to show how solitude has been essential to the creative process for many famous introverts. She points to authors like J.K. Rowling and Virginia Woolf, who created some of the most celebrated works of literature while working alone. Their ability to reflect, process, and develop their ideas in solitude allowed them to tap into their creativity and produce groundbreaking work. Cain also cites scientists such as Albert Einstein and Charles Darwin, who conducted much of their work in isolation. These individuals needed time to think, reflect, and explore their ideas without constant interruption. Cain emphasizes that the breakthroughs these figures made were possible only because they were given the space to think independently and without the pressure of constant collaboration. These examples underscore Cain's argument that solitude is not only beneficial for introverts but is also crucial for the creative process itself. Innovation often requires the ability to think outside the box, to reflect deeply, and to question existing assumptions, activities that are difficult to accomplish in the midst of constant noise and social pressure. Rethinking collaboration, balancing teamwork and solitude. While Cain acknowledges that collaboration has its place, she argues that it should not be the default approach for every task or every individual. The key, she suggests, is to create an environment that allows for a balance between teamwork and solitude. For introverts, this means giving them the freedom to work independently when necessary and only encouraging group collaboration when it adds value to the process. Cain provides several suggestions for how workplaces and educational institutions can better support introverts in creative environments. One approach is to structure meetings and collaborative sessions in ways that allow introverts time to prepare and reflect before speaking. This could involve sending out agendas in advance or allowing for individual brainstorming before group discussions. Cain also suggests creating designated quiet spaces in the workplace or school where people can work without distractions. For introverts, it's important to advocate for the time and space needed to work alone, even within a culture that prioritizes collaboration. Cain advises introverts to embrace their natural working style and to communicate their needs to colleagues and managers in a respectful way. By advocating for a balance between collaboration and solitude, introverts can thrive in a world that often prioritizes constant interaction. Chapter 10: The Communication Gap: Why It's So Hard for Introverts to Speak Up. Introduction: The Struggle to Speak Up. In Chapter 10, Susan Cain explores a core issue that introverts often face: the difficulty in speaking up, especially in situations where they feel pressure to perform or assert themselves. Cain delves into the psychological and social factors that create barriers for introverts, making it hard for them to express themselves confidently and effectively in various social and professional situations. She begins by describing the discomfort many introverts experience in environments that demand constant verbal interaction, such as meetings, group discussions, and social gatherings. This challenge is particularly evident in workplaces or classrooms where speaking up is often equated with competence and confidence. For introverts, this demand can be overwhelming, and the pressure to contribute to conversations can sometimes leave them feeling exposed and vulnerable. Cain highlights how these challenges are exacerbated by society's preference for extroversion, where being outgoing, assertive, and talkative is often seen as a sign of leadership and intelligence. This creates a communication gap, where introverts may feel undervalued or overlooked simply because they are quieter or less vocal, even though they possess valuable insights and ideas. The power of listening: introverts as observers. Cain argues that introverts often excel in situations where careful listening and observation are required. While extroverts may dominate conversations with their fast-paced ideas and opinions, introverts are more likely to sit back, listen, and think critically before offering their input. This reflective approach often leads to well-thought-out insights that can drive deeper understanding and innovation. Introverts, according to Cain, possess a unique ability to listen deeply, which allows them to pick up on nuances that others might miss. By staying quiet and paying attention to what is being said, introverts can gain a clearer understanding of the situation, helping them to craft more meaningful responses when they do speak. Cain emphasizes that introverts should not feel pressured to constantly speak up in group settings. Instead, they can embrace their strength as listeners and observers, offering insights at the right moments, when they are most valuable. This strategy can be more effective than speaking for the sake of speaking, and it allows introverts to contribute without losing their sense of authenticity. The introvert's voice: finding confidence in self-expression. A key focus of Chapter 10 is helping introverts find their voice in situations where they feel the need to speak up. Cain acknowledges that introverts often struggle with self-expression, not because they lack ideas, but because they may feel uncertain about how to communicate them in a way that is understood and respected by others. The fear of being judged or misunderstood can create a barrier to effective communication. Cain shares stories and examples of introverts who have found ways to express themselves with confidence. She stresses that for introverts, effective communication is not about being the loudest or most outgoing, but about being authentic and clear. Introverts, she suggests, can develop strategies to improve their communication skills by practicing in environments where they feel comfortable, such as with close friends or in small groups, before tackling larger, more intimidating situations. Building confidence in speaking up involves recognizing one's unique strengths as an introvert. Introverts tend to be thoughtful, deliberate, and introspective, which gives them the ability to communicate in ways that are deep, meaningful, and well-considered. By focusing on these strengths, introverts can overcome their communication challenges and develop a style that feels authentic to them. The importance of context: how environment shapes communication. Cain argues that the environment plays a significant role in how introverts communicate. The pressure to speak up is often heightened in situations where the setting is loud, fast-paced, or dominated by extroverted personalities. Introverts may find it difficult to assert themselves in such environments because they are less likely to thrive under pressure. To address this issue, Cain suggests that introverts and the people around them should consider the context of communication. For example, in meetings or group settings, introverts may benefit from environments that allow for one-on-one discussions or smaller groups, where they feel less intimidated and more able to share their ideas. This approach can help introverts express themselves more comfortably without feeling overwhelmed by the larger, more chaotic dynamics of bigger groups. Cain also discusses how introverts can advocate for their needs in various environments. By communicating their preferences for quieter, more focused settings, introverts can create opportunities to contribute meaningfully without the pressure of competing for attention in larger group settings. In doing so, they can bridge the communication gap that often leaves their voices unheard. Social anxiety and the fear of being judged. One of the key barriers to speaking up for many introverts is social anxiety, the fear of being judged, ridiculed, or misunderstood. Cain explores how this fear can lead introverts to hold back from speaking up, even when they have valuable insights to offer. The fear of negative evaluation can be paralyzing, causing introverts to second-guess themselves and avoid sharing their thoughts. Cain explains that this fear is not unfounded. Society often places a premium on extroverted behaviors, and introverts who don't conform to these expectations may feel like outsiders. However, Cain argues that overcoming this fear requires recognizing that introverts are not obligated to behave like extroverts to be valued. Introverts can find confidence in the knowledge that their ideas and contributions are meaningful, even if they don't always express them in the same way as more outgoing individuals. Cain offers strategies for overcoming social anxiety, including reframing negative thoughts, practicing self-compassion, and gradually exposing oneself to situations that feel uncomfortable. Over time, introverts can build confidence in their ability to speak up and assert themselves without the fear of judgment dictating their actions. The art of assertiveness, practicing speaking up. Cain also emphasizes that, for introverts, learning how to speak up assertively is a skill that can be developed over time. Assertiveness is not about being forceful or aggressive, it's about expressing one's needs, opinions, and ideas in a clear and respectful manner. Cain discusses how introverts can practice assertiveness by starting with small steps, such as offering a suggestion in a meeting or expressing an opinion during a conversation. For introverts, assertiveness is often about setting boundaries and ensuring that their voice is heard without overstepping their comfort zone. By practicing in low-stakes situations, introverts can build their assertiveness and gradually take on more challenging conversations or environments. Cain encourages introverts to take ownership of their voice and to recognize that they have the right to speak up and be heard. She also points out that assertiveness training can help introverts develop the confidence to engage in difficult conversations, whether in personal relationships or professional settings. By becoming more comfortable with speaking up, introverts can better navigate social and professional environments where communication is key. Conclusion. In Quiet, The Power of Introverts, Susan Cain presents a compelling case for the often overlooked strengths of introverts in a world that celebrates extroverted traits. Through deep research and personal stories, Cain highlights how introverts, often perceived as passive or shy, are, in fact, powerful individuals who bring unique perspectives, creativity, and leadership to the table. Introverts possess a quiet strength, grounded in reflection, thoughtfulness, and focused energy, which allows them to solve complex problems, foster empathy, and lead in ways that may be less obvious but are no less impactful. Cain challenges society to reconsider its extrovert-centric ideals and to create environments that embrace both introverts and extroverts. She advocates for spaces where all individuals, regardless of their personality type, are empowered to thrive by leveraging their unique qualities. Ultimately, Quiet is a celebration of introversion, a call to honor and value the contributions of those who may not speak the loudest but whose ideas and insights are deeply meaningful. Here at Mindful Audio, we believe in the power of ideas that challenge the status quo and inspire growth. Just as Quiet encourages introverts to embrace their quieter strengths and carve out their own path, We strive to create a space for all our listeners to explore, reflect, and fuel their journey toward self-discovery and achievement. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, we hope to inspire you to honor your unique qualities, push boundaries, and understand that the power to succeed lies within you. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of quiet, and be sure to stay tuned to Mind Fuel Audio for more empowering insights, transformative ideas, and audiobooks that will continue to inspire your personal and intellectual growth. Together, let's create a world where all voices, whether quiet or loud, are heard and valued.